Hi, my name is Jenna Johnson, and I am currently attending St. Mary's University to receive my Master's of Education in Learning Design and Technology. In this video, you will see my design thinking challenge that I created as the capstone in my project that centers around standards-based grading. So the problem of my design thinking challenge centered around the idea of meeting our essential learning goals. So as Lake Crystal Welcome Memorial, which is the school I teach at, we started using standards-based grading. As we started using it in the classroom more and more this year, I started to see a hole become apparent. I noticed that there was no system in place for students who didn't meet the standards so they could improve their grades over time. And I also noticed that some ELOs were one and done. Once we assessed it, we never came back to it, so there was no chance for a student to improve. So as a teacher, this was a little disheartening, but also I was concerned about the students' academic needs. So the problem I decided to tackle is how might I help students who don't meet our essential learning goals on our standards-based report cards. To start my design thinking challenge, I did some interviewing of my different stakeholders, and I was able to find some strong qualitative findings. The first thing I noticed is that we are missing a system of review and reassessment in the majority of this school. As I interviewed different teachers throughout the school building, I would say only a few of them said that they do review and reassessment in their classroom on a regular basis. My colleagues also said that this was an area that they wanted to improve on in our grading system, as they did believe it was needed. The third thing that I found out is that at the elementary, we used to have 3 different report cards. K through 1 had a different report card, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th had a different report card, and 5th and 6th had a different report card. So the idea of creating standards-based grading in our K through 5 building was to create cohesiveness throughout all of the building instead of having a system of 3 different report cards. The third finding was that the idea of our standards-based system stemmed from the idea is that we needed to develop strong communication between the parents and teachers about the students' academic needs. The standards-based grading allowed parents to have a better idea of where they can help their students, and that was communicated through the report card. The final thing that was translated by the principal is that the ultimate goal of school is learning and the mastery of our content. So our grading system should match that through continuous improvement, and standards-based grading was able to do that. So after I moved on from my qualitative findings, I was able then to dive in through my research, and I saw 4 apparent themes stand out. The first thing that I noticed, and this one was the most prevalent, as you can see the amount of researchers that I did agree with this, that reassessments should take place in the classroom. Some form of reassessment should be given to the students once they review the content and have shown their ability to master it. The second thing is a reassessment policy should take place at either the district or grade level for consistency. To my current knowledge, there is no grading policy in the district or at our grade level. In order to do this, this would then create a more cohesive unit, and students would have a strong following that they'd be able to look at. Students then would be able to follow this along to decide if they were eligible for a retest or not. This would prevent a cycle from retesting to happen all the time, as students would have this policy to follow. The third theme that I saw become prevalent as I look through my research is that skills should be practiced to continually improve academically prior or after assessment. The part that I really focused on most was that after the assessment. Once a student is reassessed, they should continually improve and enrich their skills that they've gained. And this will be seen prevalent in my prototype farther in my video. The final theme that I saw become prevalent is that there needs to be strong communication between student and teacher on essential learning outcomes. The learning outcomes of the school year need to be translated to the student through learning targets, and for the student to track their learning throughout the school year. These 4 themes that I saw helped create my design principles that you will see on the next slide. These 6 design principles were formed from my qualitative findings and my research. The first design principle is that students need to understand the learning goals and can track their progress over time. I saw this was very important, as my research pointed out that students should have a policy in place, and there should also be strong communication between the teacher and the student. They need to be held accountable for their learning, as that will increase motivation. The second principle that I saw is there needs to be communication with the grade level team. This is an area that is sometimes missing but can be implemented in my school currently, as we do have a common prep time once a week. This will help create a review system that is consistent through all of the grade, and we'll have a policy to follow along the way. The third principle that I needed in my final design was there needs to be an improvement system in place. Currently, in our grading system, there is not an improvement system in place where students can show their mastery of the content, as that was one of my qualitative findings. Students should be able to take another assessment, improve on themselves. As my research said, once again, skills should be practiced to continually improve academically before and after assessment. The fourth design principle that I needed was that it is easy to evaluate. In our district currently, we use Pearson Realize and Pearson SuccessNet. Our students take our math and reading assessments on this system, and using this system we are able to see their mastery of the content as we work on their standards-based report cards. So one thing that I wanted to make sure my final prototype had is that I was easy to evaluate and we were able to still use our Pearson system that was in place. The fifth principle that I saw was that students need feedback. Once again, going back to my research, that there needs to be strong communication between student and teachers on essential learning outcomes. So there needs to be feedback given to the students as they're working towards mastering the content. They need to know which direction they need to go in as they're working towards mastering that skill or that essential learning outcome. The final thing that I noticed is that there needs to be multiple assessments. Whether students show their knowledge in multiple forms, or whether there are multiple assessments when it comes to the final stage of reassessment. But all students need to be assessed that meets their needs. So whether I create a reassessment that is verbally done with the student when they explain the answer to me, or they take a paper copy again. But in the end, that needs to be translated to me through multiple assessments from the students. So taking all of this into account, I would then created 2 prototypes, which you will see my final prototype here. My final prototype had some different components to it. So you'll see on the screen in the picture on the right hand side is a snippet from my Schoology page under math. So the first thing you'll see is the math ELOs right here. Students will be able to track all of our essential learning outcomes for the year. They'll be able to keep track whether they need to be reassessed on that skill or not. So for example, you can see lesson 15.1, and then there will be a review folder that are shared with the students. The first thing that they would do is they would watch the review video to see the skill taught again. The next thing they would do is they would do review practice to practice the skill again, as my research did show the brain needs 24 times in order to become proficient in something. Once they did the extra practice, they would then do the mastery check. This mastery check would then give my students feedback, which was one of my principles. The students would receive the feedback, and they would decide either if they are ready to reassess or they would need more practice. So the biggest 3 components of my prototype is that students need to complete missing work, they need to be able to check their mastery, and then they either need to reassess or receive more practice. So looking at my prototype and my principles, using the different charts through design thinking challenge, all my design principles were able to met. The one that will be the hardest to meet is communication with the grade level team. But through this process, I have communicated with my grade level team, and we were able to create a prototype that we feel would work really well in our classroom based on how we are functioning, as we are almost a 1-to-1 5th grade. So it was good to know that they were all met through my prototype. So moving forward, where do I move on from here now that I have my prototype ready to go? The first thing that I need to start thinking about is that a mindset will be to set forth by teachers to encourage students for growth. We've been working on growth mindset in our school for the past couple years, so continuing to reinforce that with our students would be definitely important. Also, it benefits all students as they will be able to see individual growth and area of needs. I think this is definitely true when it comes to lower students. They'll be able to see that they're growing and moving better, but I also worry at times will they become overwhelmed. But in the end, this mindset needs to be set right at the beginning with the students that we're here to learn and master their content, and that we will work towards that through review and reassessment when a skill is not met. So overall, thinking of my design thinking challenge, I believe that I was able to answer my problem that I posed to myself at the beginning, and I have been able to find a solution that will benefit my students and it will create a stronger standards-based grading system. If you do have any questions, you can email me or you can visit my blog, abuddingteacher.blogspot.com. I would love to hear any questions or comments from you as I'm moving forward and any improvements that you may see in my design thinking challenge. Thank you for listening.